Hello, I'm Tom McCullough. I was director of Mildura Arts Centre from 1965 to 1978. Mildura Art Gallery and Museum comprised the Rio Vista building and a mural hall next to it. The small building on the right of Rio Vista was added as a conservatory. It's where there were ballet classes held. It had to be demolished, of course, to make way for the new art gallery. This photo of the model of the Art Centre with the Premier of Victoria then, Sir Henry Bolte, talking to Mayor Neil Noyce. It had to be subsidised, of course, heavily by the state, and Sir Henry Bolte was very keen on the project. This photograph of the model of the Art Centre shows the Mayor, Neil Noyce, in a light-coloured jacket, talking to various politicians, because they were fundraising, of course. And Arthur Mansell, MLA on the extreme left, he was part of the Arts Centre's committee. As you can see in this shot, the mural hall has been demolished and the building was beginning. Foundations were pretty solid, and the local builders were, I think, Weir and Company, and Neil Noyce was heavily involved as the Mayor of Mildura in keeping an eye on things staying on schedule. It was a big project for Mildura, and it made a big difference to the local economy, and it brought in a lot of state money as well as locally raised money. It took a long time to get all of this together, and Rio Vista wasn't closed down because we still had art exhibitions happening in Rio Vista while the construction was going on. This shot shows the facade of the art gallery as it was being constructed next to Rio Vista. Out the back is the gardener's cottage that wasn't touched and is still there today. The art gallery structure had a lantern at the top so that we could control the light, so that light would come in from the top and bounce down rather than have windows around the outside. It was a very modern gallery at that stage for anywhere in Victoria. This shot shows the art gallery framework pretty well complete, and then the theatre is starting on the right-hand side of that. A lot of bricks were used in the Mildura Arts Centre, and it kept the brickies very busy, and it made a good solid structure with a steel frame. This angle shows the theatre in part construction, and the art gallery is directly behind it. The roof of the theatre is very distinctive, and you can see the sloping walls of it too, which were quite controversial. Rather than being a simple rectangle, the theatre followed a different footprint altogether. Now we see the fly tower going up at the rear of the theatre. That was the last thing to be built. The foyer has already been finished. This view shows the corner of Cherry Avenue and Cureton Avenue, with the Arts Centre on the left-hand side and private houses on the right-hand side. But as you can see, there's been a lot of road making done as well. Part of the theatre roof is being put in with plenty of insulation on the top. The fly tower is still to be completed after the roof has been put on the theatre proper. And it's a long way from the fly tower down to the stage. I think it was about 50 feet high. This shot is a good contrast of how flat the Mildura landscape is around the theatre. This is a good view of the theatre stage having been put together and the orchestra pit in front of it. The fly tower rises above the whole Arts Centre and really was a highlight of the Arts Centre construction. There was a lot of curiosity while the buildings were being constructed. The Mayor, Neil Noyce, had open days for the general public and ratepayers to come along and see how the construction was going. When construction was absolutely finished, we had to install exhibitions and get programs ready for the theatre. It took quite a time to work out what we were going to show to the public for the first exhibitions. For instance, the Dan Vasiliev collection. Dr. Jim Cairns and his wife were two of the early visitors to the new Arts Centre. Were very keen on to support the arts and brought artists along and gave us some artworks for the new collection. We had our permanent collection, of course, like the Epstein bust that needed cleaning up and preparing for display. There was a little Henry Moore that we borrowed. That was for part of the opening exhibition too, I remember. One of the permanent collection pieces that we bought from the Mildura Prize exhibitions was Garden by Vincent Jomantas. Here's one of the staff members, Ben Roberts, installing pieces by Robert Dickerson. Some Aboriginal works that we borrowed for the time. Of course, that was our famous Degas drawing. That was a borrowed piece of Sidney Nolan. Sidney came up and visited the Arts Centre, and his mother, Mrs. Nolan, lent us the artwork. Then we had the Albert Tucker. The Antipodean group were a special exhibition. The works that were hanging in the old mural hall had to be rehung in our permanent area too. And you can see all permanent pieces there too. Inge King's sculptures, the Epstein, the Jomantas. And there was a dedication bronze designed by Ian Bowe. By the 12th of November, everything was ready to go. We had the VIPs come up from Melbourne and from Sydney and various places. The locals supported the opening very well. Lady Bolte, Sir Henry Bolte, Eric Westbrook from the National Gallery of Victoria. As you can see, this was a big day for the Arts Centre. And it was well supported, and it won over a lot of opposition from some ratepayers who felt that it was a bit of a frivolous thing to spend money on. But the council were very proud of it. The state supported it well. The National Gallery of Victoria supported it well. And I think it was a historic move. And Reg Etherington and Mr. Hamer. Lots of people were involved, including the architect who designed the whole thing, Douglas Alexander, and yes, lots of others. It was very rewarding to see the Arts Centre animated by Mildura people. As well as the visitors, we had lots and lots of locals come through. It was their money that started the whole thing off, and it had been going for enough years to establish quite a good group. Eric Westbrook, myself, and our wives. Mildura Arts Centre was a unique experiment in the arts in Victoria. We hadn't had the National Gallery of Victoria or the Arts Centre built at that stage, so we were the only regional centre that had that mix of theatre, art gallery, and history. The Arts Centre has had an interesting history, and it all started, as we said, many years ago. It's now a thriving arts centre, but those the first years of getting it going were very interesting for me, and I hope for the Mildura people too.